Yeah. So, okay, this was a step towards lifestyle. Okay, time is a little bit running out. Let's um, finalize these this script with developing questionnaires. What we have here, there's not so much left. We have to talk about. We talked about use of media channels. Then here I have I have collected some general rules when you are developing questions on your own. So I think the questions I have shown you before cover a lot. So you can, if you want to make your own visitor study, you can use all of them. If you want to go apart from this and develop your own questions or your own questionnaire, then I can give you some recommendations where you put attention to. One is always when you create questions, make the formulations as simply as possible. Ask always short questions. Avoid foreign words. And what's very, very important, neutral wording. You need to have a balanced formulation, giving or including all alternatives in the answer. For instance, you ask a simple question: do you like this festival? Very much, rather, partly, rather not at all. It's not the question as it should be, because the real question then should be, do you like this festival or do you like this not? Because if you do not have this alternative in the question, you already have a bias in the answers. Automatically, people tend to the more positive answers. So you must always have all alternatives that appear in the answers. Also, you must have them in the question. Yes, also ask not complicated, straightforward, and simpler. Here I find, I've given you a practical example I found in a questionnaire. It's from a real survey. It's about money spent on media. How much money do you spend per capita in your household on media usage, including all subscriptions, ticket purchases, special item purchases, and purchases for technology devices? And not only the one person, but the whole household.
You have to make a mental
Yes,
calculation.
no one can answer this. No one can
Call your
answer
accountant.
It's
And
like
also-
in the tax return.
Yeah.
Bad question. Adapt formulations to the knowledge level and the motivation and to the language of the respondents. Usually when you're doing visitor studies, this is not a big problem because we have this very well educated audience normally. But when you do a visitor study, it's a bigger problem because here the question must be answered by anybody, also with second class education or no education at all. Also, no double negatives, no negotiations at all in a question. For instance, not using streaming services for watching movies means that you're not up to date as a consumer. You would not agree? Yes, partly no. So it's impossible to understand.
There's no right
And
answer.
how to interpret it.
Depends on the language. In English,
Yeah.
you have to say no if you mean yes.
Partly.
By double.
Can't make
double.
anything. You can't go wrong with partly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, what else? Or let's go here. Here I listed some typical errors in the wording of the question. On the questions, very typical, it's too general. The question is too general and you do not know when you're interpreting the answer what the respondent was thinking of. For instance, do you like Chancellor Scholz, for instance? It's too general because you do not know what is the basis of this answer by the respondent. Several thoughts per question. Failure has happened also very often. You ask two different things in one question. For instance, example, do you think that smokers should pay more for health insurances because they create rising costs? You have two questions in one, and you do not know what the answer is referring to. So it means, should they pay more? Are they really responsible for higher insurance costs and so on? So one thought, one question. When explanations are needed, or you have unfamiliar issues, for instance, this is especially important when you are asking for new ideas, for new offers that the respondent cannot imagine very good. What do you mean by this? When we would do this and this, how would you agree? Would you like to see this or not? So you have always to be very concrete. Also avoid questions without reference to a use. And also, with a very common problem, putting the analysis into the question itself. I mean, you have a question you want to be answered by your visitor research, and you ask this question the respondent. For instance, when you're buying a ticket, what do you usually use? Visa, I'm paying in cash, I'm paying with PIN, or I'm paying with an EC card. Yeah, it's an absolute disaster because it's overlapping, it's leaving out answers, it's incomplete, and so on. Unbalanced answer specifications. One category is missing. For instance, how much do you like this festival? I like it very much, I like it rather, I like it not so much.
Sam.
There's something missing, of course. So if you want to have good figures, then leave out the bad answering category, and automatically you have better results. Ambiguous on the formulation, ambiguous, unclear, suggestive, too long, too extreme, or also use of foreign words, dialect expressions, or double meanings. Then let's come to the designing of a questionnaire, dramaturgy, where to start with and where to end. When you're making a questionnaire, you always order your question into thematic blocks or modules. Do not mix up any question and any topic, but structure them. For instance, you make a block about satisfaction with the offer. You make a block about satisfaction with the services. You make the first block, for instance, visiting behavior. So one after the other. When you have very different topics, you can also make transitions, or you can make filtering questions, for instance. If some questions are not important for some visitors, you just jump over them. Also, go always from easy to difficult. Easy means questions that are easily to answer, or that are not not sensitive, where people have problems to answer. For instance, income questions. When you want to know about income or also education, don't start with a question like that, because people are, or migration status. When you start with a question like that, this may create problems for people, because they ask, why do you ask this me at all? I'm German or whatever. It's always good to begin easy and then become more specific. Begin easy means to start with easy questions that everybody can answer without big effort.
Yeah.
Most of them can say yes to it, collect yes answers, because when at the beginning the respondents had to say no, he feels, oh well, I cannot tell you, this is not for me, this survey. Make it interesting, make the entry interesting. Ask an interesting question at the beginning. Maybe even later you throw this question away. It's just to have a good entry into the questionnaire. And put the socio-demographic data always at the end, always at the end, always. Because it's so boring to start the survey by asking questions. How old are you?
Okay.
What is your education? And so on. It's just much more interesting. Are you the first time here? And how did you like it? And things like that. And then at the end, ask for the demographics. Hard questions at the end. Sensible questions. For instance, migration status, age, as I said, is also for some people a hard question. Older woman, it's a hard question. Income is a very hard question. So when people refuse to answer this, they at least have answered all the questions before, and you have them. So in the worst case, you only lose one question that is not answered.